Oh, of course. Now, Niilo, you can try it once, right?
Okay, so share, subscribe, and click the
Dude,
bell
it's
button.
it's like, share, and subscribe. Come on, like,
Okay,
do it
well,
again.
okay. Like, share, subscribe.
And subscribe. Yes, it's good enough. We're happy.
Well, I was about to say and click the bell icon. So
You have to put all of this there.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. Okay, sorry,
Yes.
my bad.
but I guess we are fine with it, right?
We're very fine with it. I mean, of course, everybody will want to subscribe anyway, so maybe we don't even need to say it because people are just so excited about what we're doing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Key Culture Podcast. This is Matei Gheorghiu, your host, and as usual, we're doing this with Niilo Tarnanen. Hi, Niilo.
Hi, everyone.
And today we have two female composers. We have Aya Yoshida from Japan. Hello, Aya.
Hi.
And we have, and this is going to be a bit harder for me, Feliz Anne Reyes Macahis. Did I say that right?
Yes, it's
Yes.
perfect.
From the Philippines. Hello.
Hi.
All right. And we're continuing our journey around the world to see how classical music and Western music is done in other parts. What is interesting about this episode is that we have, let's say, a guest from a country we don't know much about. And that's in line with the episodes we had so far. We had people from Mexico, Ghana, South Africa, countries like that, about which we know quite little. But then we have also someone from Japan, and as probably many of you know, there's several countries from which many good musicians come from, and Japan is one of those countries. So it would be very interesting to find out throughout this series, why is it so that Western music has been so successful in some places and less successful in other places? We've already discussed that in the previous episodes. So if you want to find out what people from those episodes thought about this phenomenon, you can check them. But, well, it seems we lost Aya for a while. But in the meantime, Feliz, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Feliz. I'm a composer from the Philippines, currently living and studying in Graz, Austria. How do I start?
Well, I mean, where did you live? In what other countries? Where did you study? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Philippines and I finished my bachelor's degree in the University of the Philippines. And then I got an opportunity. I got a full scholarship and assistantship to do my first master's, in Memphis, Tennessee. So I was there for 2 years. I studied with Cameron Innes. And after that, my family migrated to Canada. So I lived in Montreal for about 2 years before I decided to try to do an entrance exam in Germany.
Right.
And when I got a chance, then I moved to Hanover. And I was there for 3 years. I did another master's. It was with in composition, but also electronic music. Yes, after that, so yeah, you have to keep finding. The next was Graz.
And you're doing now in Graz what?
It's doctoratium. It's called doctoratium. It's an artistic doctoral study.
Okay. And in Canada, you didn't study; you just lived there, right?
I would say yes. I just lived there. Although I got in contact with some composers and musicians, and there was a time that I had to technically enroll so I can be part of a production or a project.
All right.
But yeah.
So, in any case, you have lived in many places.
Yes.
Great. So you have a great perspective then.
Sounds really good.
I hope we will see.
Yeah, we will see. How about Aya? Like, can you tell us a bit about yourself? In what countries you lived, where you studied?
I was just born in a small town. It's called Kobe in Japan, a little bit west side of Japan, 1992. And my parents were not like a musician or anything like that, but somehow they really like music. So they took me to the kind of a musical school organized by Yamaha. Have you heard it? Yeah. Then I studied but I just did a dancing or singing or those kind of things when I was at 2. Then, yeah, and I started composing at 6 as well in the same school and playing piano at 6 as well. And yeah, been to like a normal, like a secondary school and high school, then musical conservatory in Tokyo. Then 2014, I moved to Denmark for my master study in Royal Danish Academy of Music. Then I spent 2 years there. Then I also spent another 2 years for being a freelancer in Denmark. Then 2019, I moved to the Holland.
To Holland?
Yeah, the Netherlands. So, yeah.
You just moved there, or do you do some other studies, or?
No, I didn't study at all in
Okay.
the Netherlands. I don't now.
And as it turns out, right now you're also in Graz for.
Yeah, I have been doing artist in residency organized by a provincial government of Steiermark, like one provincial like government in Austria. So yeah, I'm staying here for 2 months.
Yeah, well, maybe we can tell that this was a kind of funny coincidence that we wanted to get both Aya and Feliz for this episode. And it just happened that in this particular month, both of them are in the same city. Well, I guess they didn't want to come together for this video from the same room, but anyway, so they are both in Graz right now.
Yeah.
So you also have lived, let's say, in 3 countries, in Japan, in Denmark, and in the Netherlands.
Yeah, true.
So is it okay if I ask one big question first? You know, Japan is one of those countries from which very many great classical musicians come nowadays. Why is it so that Western classical music has been so successful there? How did it grow so strong roots there? And
I think it's a quite interesting question for me, because unfortunately, Japanese classical music scene is not big as the one in Europe. I feel like much smaller, and even like a contemporary music scene is much smaller. But somehow, like a young generation of composers and musicians are easily going out of the country to study in the States or Europe, and they were doing somehow well. So I don't know how well they are, but yeah, they're doing so well in Europe and America. Yeah, and also because of the education, I feel like in not only in Japan but also in Asia, there's so many like musicians, really good musicians in Europe. So because of the education.
so what is? Yeah, go ahead, Niilo.
Yeah, so I would like to ask a further question. So Aya, what would you consider the biggest strengths of the production systems in Japan or other countries in Asia that produce so many good musicians?
Yeah, personally, I feel like they were very much focused on the technique stuff, even in competition or music, like playing, studying. So they were very much care about like a technique or like a solfege. How do you call it? Like
yes,
solfege, or like like a musical theory or those kind of things. They're very much focused on it so precisely. Yeah, they're very much focused on those theory, technique stuff, also solfege in the education. That's a big part of our like musical education in Japan, I feel.
So you would say that because everyone's so stressing on the technical aspects of music, you think that creates very good musicians who then apply to universities abroad and go and study there successfully?
It's not everything, but like some of them help them to do something further in the future, I feel, especially for a contemporary composer or something like that.
But you said earlier that, you know, the musical life is not as rich as in Europe. So then why is it so that if the schools are so good and they produce so many good musicians, why don't so many musicians stay there and create a great, rich culture?
Actually, the society and also education, it's a little bit different between, I feel. So unfortunately, I don't think a lot of musicians could be a kind of a professional musician, or how do you say, like, could make a living just as a musician or composer after the education in Japan, because of a lack of like a foundation or those kind of things. So I think, unfortunately, the education itself and also society is a little bit like apart from each other.
But I mean, in the Nordic countries, it's one of the few places where composers can get grants. But in most of the world, people just, musicians go to orchestras, composers become teachers. Isn't it the same in Japan?
Yeah, for the musicians, yes. So some of people are going abroad after the studying in Japan. Then they're coming back to Japan again to be an orchestra player or something, or they're just staying in Europe or States to be an orchestra player. So it's a little bit different from composer side, but yeah, it's almost the same.
Yeah, I was about to ask from Feliz, now when we touched the how the music education system and then the music life go together in Japan. So how would you say from Filipinese point of view, is it similar there, or is it different?
It's a bit different. I think in Japan it must be much better than in the Philippines. So we have to like really divide it. For example, in grade school, in middle and high school, and then university. Because living abroad, then I've seen the situation of the younger generations or the kids and how music is integrated in their life. And I would compare it to how it was back then in my situation. So in grade school, music is I think music is not well integrated in the teaching. There are music modules developed by the Department of Education. I personally think it's not well done. So it means that good music education is more concentrated in maybe like private schools. In high school, there are very few specialized schools. So there is the Philippine High School for the Arts, and it's a place where young musicians, they can really study music, and they are well supported. So they have scholarship. It's the same as for example, a science high school. So they're well supported. And then in the university, it's like a good transition to study in a music university. In the music university, I would say that yes, we have good education, and now it has. By now, we have more than 5 music universities in the country. I would say this is already an improvement, because before there were just very few. If we really want to pursue the career to improve more, then we have to leave the country, because to have like to improve the skills and mastery, and to have more connections, we have to leave.
Where do people from Philippines usually live then? Do they go to the surrounding areas, or do they also try to go to Europe and North America?
I think there are more opportunities in America because of the scholarships offered. So yes, there were pianists, conductors, composers focusing more on choral music. So they study abroad and then they come back, and they get a position in the university, and then they establish the curriculum. So things are improving. There are also those who studied in Europe, and then yes, they come back and also help in improving the music education. But to compare this to, like in US and in Europe, we have less support in Europe. So it's very difficult.
Right.
So because of the funding, it's more difficult to get into the European programs. Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually interesting that you told about that you have better opportunities in going to the United States. Is this the same also in Japan, Aya? Is it easier
Especially
to go to States or to Europe?
in the musical scene, you mean?
Yes.
Not as many as the one in Europe, I feel. Yeah, some of them are of course going to the States, but not many as like the one in Europe. Because of the tuition fee or those kind of things, I feel. Because of the tuition fee, it's so expensive in the UK and also the States. So, and we don't have many like support, like foundation to cover those tuition fee from Japan, I feel. So not many.
Okay, so the funding systems are a bit differently.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, this is interesting. Actually, another question that came to my mind when I listened to Feliz mentioning the choral music. I've understood that in Philippines the choral music is actually a big scene. As a choral singer, I have often been in festivals or competitions where there are choirs from Philippines, and they are usually very good. So would you tell something about the choir life in Philippines?
Yes, so the choral music scene in the Philippines is really huge. And in fact, I came from there as well.
Okay.
So while studying composition, I was very active performing as a member of a choir. Okay, not just a choir, but I think like 5 different choirs. And we really take it seriously, which means that we prepare for competitions. There's like a schedule of a tour, US tour and European tour. And there are many huge choral music festival in the country. The biggest or the most famous choir, and maybe you will be familiar with this name. It's Philippine Madrigal Singers.
Oh yes, yeah.
So this is another kind of music education that we get not from the institution itself, the institutions, but as more in the like community, because there are many community choirs, which means that the members are not necessarily music majors. So they have other professions, doctors or managers, lawyers, whatever. But they're very active in this. Yes, so it's a way of teaching music in non-music professionals. Yes, and until now, there are just so many events happening.
Is this reflected also in the contemporary music that is composed or performed in Philippines? Is there many composers writing to choirs, or is there a lot of new commissions or premieres for choir music, or are these two scenes more separate?
Actually, there are many composers who studied composition, and then they would focus on choral music, and they study in another country. So there are many composers whose works are performed more by choirs compared to, for example, instrumental ensemble and so on. There are more chances of having it getting well performed.
Interesting. I think it's always fascinating when there are some regional or local, let's say, profiles for the music life. That it's not that way that it's the same copy of the same system everywhere, but there are some particularities, and it seems that choral music is definitely one for the Philippines.
If we're going to talk about particularities, I would be also curious if you could describe a bit, like we've talked a bit about education, but how about, let's say, the level or the number of orchestras or operas in your respective countries? So how is it in Japan?
Yeah, we have so many orchestras and also not many like opera production, but some, and also professional choirs and professional ensembles. I don't really know how many, like exact number, but it's quite a lot.
All right. How about in Philippines?
There are, yes, we have the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra, and this is the one that's supported by the government. I think like they have a tenure,
Mhm.
and they're housed in the Cultural Center of the Philippines. There are other community orchestras, and there are also private orchestras. With opera, I think there's strong opera like voice departments in some universities in the Philippines, and some of them have really made opera productions, but I think it's not so huge in comparing to, for example, choral music. It's not extremely popular.
All right. All right. Now I mixed the questions a bit.
One question you were about to ask previously, but you didn't get there. It was the question about is the Western classical music considered Western in Japan, or is it just considered part of the local culture?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's also interesting to think about. I think it's still Western in a way. So that's why people are going study abroad in Europe. They want to study further about like classical music. Yes, and our like mainstream of music, it's still kind of a commercial music, like a pop rock music, and contemporary music, or also like even like a classical music scene. It's much smaller than those kind of like mainstream, financially, economically. So we think of it still like a kind of Western.
So it's kind of distinct from the own Japanese traditional music from the court, or these ancient traditions, and so that you keep these traditions really distinct.
Yeah, true. We still have distinct, like authentic Japanese traditional music. It's called gagaku. That sometimes but recently I have seen a lot of collaboration between those, like intercultural stuff going between the different genres of music or different type of music. So yeah, maybe it's more combined in a way, but we still have a distinct one separately as well.
Actually, I've even in Finland a couple of times heard performances where contemporary composers have been using, let's say, koto as an instrument. So is this kind of combining the traditions, or let's say the instruments or other specific features of the traditions? Does it happen a lot, or is it, let's say, is it just something a bit odd compared to the normal?
I would say it's quite trendy to use a kind of idea of Japanese traditional music, especially for the musicians or like Japanese composers who are living in Europe, because once they are out of the country and they see the country back again, they see how like a privileged stuff they had before, like in Japan, like in Japanese culture, and they want to take a kind of a part of our identity somehow to their own creation. So that was kind of a trendy stuff. And also once they're in Europe, they want to do more about their identity. So that's why they're more interested in like their own culture stuff, like identity, like authentic stuff, I feel.
Are you personally interested in this approach?
Yes and no, because being Japanese is just part of me, but not everything. So I'm not really interested in doing Japanese stuff all the time, but somehow, like coincidentally, maybe I took a part of that one in my creation, like without any consciousness. But yeah, might be interesting.
I wanted to ask both of you, if you can say, I mean, maybe you don't know, but in case you do, when did it start to kind of take off, let's say, in your respective countries, this Western musical tradition? Like, when did it start becoming more and more popular? Let's start with Feliz.
And maybe, Matei, if I can
Yeah.
put a bit of extra there, how does this differentiate if you compare the classical music and then the popular music? Because what I understood from what Aya said, it's actually really, really different dynamics if you compare the commercial side of the music making or than the classical.
All right. Sure. Feliz, go ahead.
Okay, so as far as I can remember, when you say music or to study music, it's automatically Western music. You know, Philippines was colonized by Spain for hundreds of years, and we have adapted so many things, and language, culture, arts, music. For example, we have some classical genre or forms. For example, there's this zarzuela, and this is like Spanish.
Zarzuela. Yeah.
Yes.
The kind of operetta style of, yeah.
Yes, and as a Filipino, this sounds really old already. But yes, so it came from the Spanish influence. It was only some decades ago that we had more focused again on, for example, the traditional music, like the music that exists even before we were invaded.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of the works of composers, ethnomusicologists like Jose Maceda, Ramon Santos. So they did this huge ethnomusicological fieldwork to collect and record traditional songs and instruments, and collect the instruments, and build this center for ethnomusicology in the University of the Philippines. And since then, they were getting more support also from the National Commission for Culture and the Arts to support this kind of music. And now I see more this connection of traditional music and then to contemporary music. But in terms of the classical Western music, it's there. It has always been there.
All right. How about Aya?
Classical Western music is a main part of our education, musical education, since when I was young. And also, like, a lot of my friends were studying piano or those kind of things, but they were all studying Western classical music. And none of them were studying any like pop music or Japanese pop music or even like authentic Japanese music. So I would say like mainstream of musical education were all the time like classical Western side. But after like getting older and older, we could also have opportunity to study like a pop music or those kind of things. So maybe the education helped us to study about like classical Western music more. But I think nowadays it's being changed a little bit, like more pop music scene could be in instead of a classical Western music.
But I mean, like historically, like if you think about, was classical music popular? When did it start becoming popular in Japan? Did it start last 100 years ago or 50 years ago, or?
No, we like 60s, 70s.
Okay, and what happened then, like that it became more popular?
I think Beatles or those kind of things were coming from Europe, which definitely helped the Japanese pop musical scene like enhance somehow. So anyway, they're also coming from Europe or America, I would say. So
actually, I would like to ask a question concerning again kind of the United States versus Europe situation in Japan. So for of course probably in context of Western classical music, people are probably playing the same Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, and so on pieces, most of which is from Europe from that times. But how about for, let's say, for example, popular music? Is there more interaction between Japan and the Northern America than you would say there is between Japan and Europe?
I think more like interaction between like America and also Japan, because after World War II, we were under the States like a control for a long time. And at the time, we got a lot of like stuff from America, and a lot of culture was Americanized at the time. So I think especially in the popular music, we got a lot of stuff from America instead of Europe, or sometimes maybe from UK.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But the dynamics is not the same in the classical music, which is still probably a bit more influenced by Europe. Did I get it right?
Yeah, anyway, the popular music scene is much bigger than the classical music scene, so I cannot really compare there between, but yeah, we got a lot.
Well, that's everywhere in the world, like it's not just in Japan.
True.
Probably, yes.
True, so it's a little bit difficult to compare with, but yeah.
But that's all going to change soon because of our Key Culture podcast, obviously.
I would actually
turn the tides in our favor.
I would like to ask also Feliz if because also the Philippines was then later on colonized by the United States, if I understood correctly. So did this change a lot of the Spanish influence that was older, or was it something that didn't have that big effect to the culture or the music in the Philippines?
There's a huge change, definitely. And you can see it in many structures. For example, the education system, the university, the government. And talking about popular music, popular culture, definitely until now, it's very strong. With regards to the previous question a while ago, when I answered about how long is Western classical music, how long has it been in the country? And I said that it was actually there as for a long time because we were colonized by Spain. There is a limit of who can access this kind of scene, and it's more for the elite, for the rich people. And for example, I came from I would say middle class, lower middle class, and studying piano, it's difficult to pay for someone to get private music lessons when I was a child. This is a fight with my parents. It's really difficult. So while it has been existing for a while, it's just for some group of people. But popular music, because of globalization, more people, whether from whichever class, or popular music is very accessible, and young or old people, they're very involved, and they connect to the music.
This is actually a really interesting question also, how the social class and the musical culture are connected. How is it in Japan, Aya? Is it so that classical music is only accessible for the elite, or is it accessible for the middle classes or the working classes also?
It's kind of the same in Philippines in a way. Yeah, we don't really have like an obvious like a social hierarchy in the society, but like a musical education, it's all the time so expensive, so expensive. I would say, like, for example, in the musical conservatory in Tokyo, the tuition fee is 10 times more than the one in Europe, for example, in Germany.
Wait. So what's the tuition fee in Germany?
Okay, like 2,000 or something like that a year, no?
So in Tokyo would be like 20,000.
Or at least you know it, right?
No, I just wanted to say, because now it changed now in Germany, and the tuition is free, so you just pay.
Okay, but I mean,
at least
I think it's free. Yeah, but the point is like.
True. Like I thought it's kind of 2,000 in Germany, then it's 20,000 in Tokyo.
And it's still like that.
Yeah, I think so. And unfortunately, we don't have much like a personal like a foundation to cover the tuition fee for people who don't have much money. So in a way, yeah, it's only for elite people.
So this might also explain why many people would rather go somewhere else to study music at a high level, because they would rather do it they would either pay for the living costs in European countries than go to, I understand.
That could be one of the reasons as well, I feel.
And also, I guess if you're talking about the living costs, they are probably not very much lower in Tokyo than they are in Copenhagen.
No, in Tokyo everything is higher and higher now, so it's quite expensive to live there.
How would you compare, like, let's say, now you have lived in all these places, both of you. Could you tell us a bit about how it is to live in your country of origin, let's say as a musician, and how do you feel it's in Europe or North America or wherever you have lived? Let's start maybe with Aya, because you have lived in less places. So we let Feliz think about all these other places.
You mean as a composer or just as a
person? As a musician mostly.
As a composer, yeah.
How does it feel to live in Japan, and how is it to be a composer in Denmark?
Or the Netherlands.
Or the Netherlands.
Yeah, but it's totally different between the one Japan, also the one in Europe. For example, I don't really know many like professional contemporary music composer in Japan, because as we said, like we don't have much like foundations to support composers. So unfortunately, a lot of composers were teaching mainly and doing some like a small commission or something like that on the side. That kind of a mainstream of being a Japanese contemporary music composer. But for example, in Denmark, even like in young generations, they could just live as a composer because of the lot of like a foundation or support or grants or those kind of things from the community. So that was kind of shocking or surprising for me when I started like living there in Denmark for the first time.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, these 5 Nordic countries are probably the only countries in the world where there's like a whole year grant system that can provide composers with living. Well, actually not even living, but like some money, you know.
Yeah.
It's but I mean, I can tell you in Romania there is no such thing. Neither is in Serbia or Ukraine or any of the other countries around me. So,
but I guess also the Netherlands is okay, or have I heard wrong rumors?
No, I'm still, I would say like I'm half based in Denmark and half based in the Netherlands. So my work is still based in Denmark mainly. So I don't really know into the musical scene in the Netherlands yet, because I have been there only for less than 2 years. But I've seen a lot of like foundations we can apply to do a project or those kind of things. So yeah, I think it's way similar to Nordic countries in a way.
Are these the only differences between Japan and Denmark and Netherlands, or there's more?
If you could describe about maybe what I would be interested, for example, the musical styles, what are that are typical in contemporary music. Are you more free to explore yourself in some places? At least the two countries, special countries like Denmark and the Netherlands, are perhaps the go to the crazy side of the spectrum, from what I know. That you can do pretty much everything and people are still buying it.
Yeah, true. So when I was in Japan, I like 7 years ago, like a trendy stuff in a contemporary music is that like in a way French style, because our teachers' generation being abroad to France quite a lot, and they were studying like a spectrum or those kind of things at the time. So they were teaching like a French style of like contemporary music at the university. So that's why we got a lot of inspiration from that. But nowadays people are going to everywhere, like America, Europe, like UK. So like those kind of a trendy stuff are kind of combined well. But in Denmark, I was quite shocked because everyone could do everything. You know, they don't really care about like what the trendy stuff or what the mainstream of being a contemporary composer. So yeah, it's so different from each other. I think it's also in the Netherlands as well. So they don't really care about like a mainstream at all. Like they're just doing their own stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how is it for Feliz? How will you compare the contemporary music scenes in the countries you've been, or the living as a composer in these countries?
So in the Philippines, if you want to live as a composer, you need some other jobs. The very common thing is to have a teaching job, and it's so if you finished in the university and you get your master's, you can get a teaching position in the university. And actually, I did after my master's in US, and I think I was just for 1 year in Canada. There was an opening in my university in the Philippines, so I went home, and for 1 year I was teaching. And so there I could experience how it is. If I compared, the income, of course, it's small compared to the income of the professors in Europe and in US. But if you base it on the living cost, then it's more than enough. And I have a very comfortable life. I can go relax. It's not just there's time to compose, to teach, and to also to relax. So it's an okay situation if you're happy with that. But I was young, and I wanted to experience more, and this is why I pursued this study in Germany. In Germany, when I came there was no scholarship. So I had to be enrolled first before I could look for internal scholarships from the university, which could not really support you fully. Okay, but the situation as a student composer, it was okay, because, and I cannot say if this is the same with other Hochschule in Germany. I think it could be different, but in Hanover, the assignments we were getting, the composition projects we were getting, some of them are also paid. So they're well connected to the community, so that they're like small commissions, but they're still commissions, and it's like a good transition to the professional world. And then if I compare this to the life in US, it's very difficult to say, because I studied in Memphis, and in Memphis it's a place for pop, for jazz, for contemporary music. It's a little bit conservative, I think.
To be perfectly honest, I never heard of the contemporary music scene in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's more for composers who have a strong jazz influence or pop influence. And I mean, it's also nice to be there, but maybe it's not my kind of environment. After that, I mentioned that I moved to Canada, in Montreal, and this was a really nice atmosphere for not just for music, but for arts in general, because there it's the first time that I saw, interactive installation, and people go there, people go to museums, and there are many artists, many foreigners.
I also had a residence in Montreal once, and I can say that culturally, I thought it was a great place. And at least the two contemporary ensembles that I heard playing were very good, and the museums were very nice.
Yes. So I thought when I was there, I thought that, okay, this is the place where I will live, because it's really...
I can understand.
But, and also because I was an immigrant, and I tried to, for example, get support from the Canada Council for the Arts and the Quebec Council. And it's also the first time that I see in those options that they say things like, we support women and people from other with a diverse background. And I mean, it's quite nice and inviting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still difficult to be totally integrated there. I don't know if it's just because I was not officially like a composition student in the universities, so that I don't get like projects there. But yes.
I have a few ideas, but I don't know if I want to say, because I could get them completely wrong. But I would also assume that Montreal is this and Quebec is this like very hardcore French-speaking part. So they really like their hardcore French-speaking people. I guess those are going to be the ones who are going to be promoted most. So I don't know. I mean, that's from what I've heard. I don't know myself from first-hand experience.
Maybe yeah. So I
know.
lived in a more French region. So Montreal is like the main, the city, but I live in a smaller town or a smaller city, and it's also in the Quebec province. And
Which one?
there it's more French. It's Brossard. So it's in the
Brossard,
South
okay.
Shore. You just have to cross the river.
Okay. Yeah.
And there it's much more French. Sorry. So the last thing is to connect it to the situation in Europe. I wouldn't like separate Germany, Austria as like two totally different situation. I would say that I live in Europe. I think it's like this. I mean, I'm based in Graz, but I have project in France, in Germany, and in Austria. Yes, it's much better to live here as a composer, I think, as of now.
So you mean that you get more funding, or in what sense it's better?
In the sense that I get more projects, so paid commissions, so I can live as a composer. For fundings, like if you mean like a funding from the government.
No, I meant any, like if it's paid commission or grants or something. It doesn't really matter in the end where the money is coming from, as long as it's coming, you know. Because in Romania, I think, for example, and I had one musician who like asked me to write a piece for him, and then he didn't say anything about money. And then I was like, you know what, like it's fine with the money because I have this grant and I can use it to write this piece. And then he got upset, like, wow, what do you mean the funding? Like, I wasn't going to pay you anyway. Like I'm not like an opera house, you know. I just wanted to help you out, like to give you the opportunity to write a piece for me. And I know that the mentality is like this, at least in some countries of the area, that composers should just be happy that I'm giving you the chance to write for me, and you're gonna get your piece played. And otherwise, money you can get from teaching or something else. But us musicians are not supposed to pay you, or we shouldn't be responsible to find financing for you. It's true that I would say in other parts of Europe, the mentality is that, yes, you don't ask composers to write just like for
free.
For their pleasure. Like, I know you would like to compose, so I'm giving you the chance to compose for me.
It's very interesting to hear that, that there's this, I guess there's many parts of Europe. In many parts of Europe, it's like this. Would you confirm that?
I haven't lived in many parts of Europe, but I know that there is not much funding in countries like the Balkan area that, you know, would just support you financially to, like, there's no foundations for which you can apply, like, I want to compose this and this and this with this ensemble and this ensemble. And I think usually it's that people are just happy to get performed. So they write, somebody asks them, would you write for my ensemble or for my trio and then people just write, and then there's the concert and everyone's happy.
Well, in order to not give too rose-shaded idea of the Finnish cultural scene either, let's say the fact that of course the grants are very competed, so it's not easy to really have let's say stable funding. So unless you are very successful, you will still be like me or Matei, who really get their money from teaching actually.
Yeah, like I mean, if you get a half-year grant in Finland, which is quite a big deal in the end, or a 1-year grant, you're gonna get something like 10, 20, 25,000, and if you get it this year, it doesn't mean you get it next year. And so if once you get a 25,000 grants, yes, you are going to live with that for 1 year, and it's gonna be great. But the next time it will come might be in 3 years, or in 5 years, or in 10 years. And it's not like if you have 3 children, you can just send them to Harvard and like with that kind of money, it's like a normal it's like a normal small salary.
Sorry, I started laughing about the Harvard. Like, what are your standards, man? You don't even have children, and you're still thinking of sending them to Harvard.
I'm just talking principle, but cover your mic when you laugh, because it's well.
Sorry.
Yeah. So like, okay, forget about Harvard, but I mean, like, if you have 3 children, it's not like you can feed them with those 20,000 you get in 1 year. So even in countries like this where you actually get funding, and that's great, there's little to no chance to live just from composing. So to get like Magnus Lindberg or Kaesaria, who get like commissions all the time and funding all the time, that's like 1 in 100. So
yeah, but I don't know, it was interesting to have this kind of a bit of comparison between a few countries in Europe. But I would also be interested to ask about how the musical life and how the contemporary music scene is in other countries around Japan or around Philippines, if you happen to know. Do you have experience in, let's say, China or South Korea or Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and so on?
Yeah, like the area, let's say.
For example, I just talked with my friend who is a contemporary music composer from Taiwan, and she said like the situation is way similar to the one in Japan, like a less funding or those kind of things and less commission fee. But they have really nice conservatory, and a lot of people are going out of the country after education and to study further. So I think in Taiwan, it sounds like it's quite a bit similar. But maybe Felix know much more about Thailand or those kind of things. But for me, like Thailand, they are doing so well because of the younger generation of composers. Don't you think so?
Maybe you can continue.
Yeah, I like. There's some like contemporary music, like a competition, like composers competition or those kind of things going on actively. I've heard it from like Thai people at least. So I think in Thailand, there are a lot of interesting things going on in a contemporary music scene.
Yeah, maybe I can speak about Southeast Asia because I'm well connected. I would like to think that I'm well connected to young composers. So when I was still living in the Philippines and until 2009, the activities in the region were not so many. So that when there is an event, we all know about this. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's an event in Indonesia this month, and then there's an event in Malaysia, and we try to go there. So that that was the time that I don't know, maybe we're a group of like 10 young composers. Okay, mostly men. It doesn't matter, but we're all young Southeast Asian composers, and since then, it has improved a lot, and I think every country managed to really, I don't know, they got support. So local support, and which is very important. For example, Aya mentioned about Thailand. They are really doing really well. When I was still a student, I just knew about one university, but then after a few years, I heard like 4 or 5 universities. So it has gone much better. In Indonesia, yes, there are festivals like Yogyakarta Festival. They have a rich electronic music scene.
Okay, interesting.
I didn't know that.
Actually, I have many friends. I have some friends who are pursuing, more like electronic noise and computer music. You would see them now around the world. Countries like Vietnam, Myanmar, I think Vietnam is also getting better, and you would hear composers coming from these countries. But for example, the others, it's maybe it's more traditional, or maybe just that we don't have so much contact. But I wanted to point out that in 2009, I think that's really quite historical for us, because it was a time that there was this competition in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
And it was organized by Kyung Chong. It was supported by the Goethe Institute. And since then, we tried to...
By we,
connect
you
with
mean
the Goethe
Philippines
Institute.
or who? You said it was important for us. Who is us?
Southeast Asia.
Okay,
maybe.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, at least, and Singapore. At least 5 of us are like well connected, and since then we got some external support. So from Germany, this Goethe Institute, and we have this organized festivals and competitions to empower the young composers more. And because of that, then after some years, these young composers, some of them already got their doctors, and they came back, they're teaching, they have a position in the university, and in every university, I think they're doing well.
So the field is getting more strong.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. Could you give us some names, like who would be composers to follow, for example, from the electronic scene of Indonesia, or from the other countries or areas that you mentioned?
And if you don't want to be very stressed about it, you can just send me an email later, and we're just going to put them on the screen later, just so for people to check.
Yeah, but
Okay.
at least my friend, he's called Piyawat from Thailand. Do you know him?
I know
He
him.
has been doing a lot of things in education, and also his own as well. So maybe he's coming out like a composer, I would say.
Could you write the name down?
Yeah. I'm gonna send it to you later, because the spelling is so difficult for me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I was going to ask, since you mentioned that Feliz, that the group of 10 composers was all men, but it's okay. I wanted to ask about the, let's say, status of female composers. How is it? It would be interesting to know how a composer's profession is seen in these countries in terms of gender equality. Is it a genderless profession, or is it a stereotypical man profession? And how do you feel it is in Europe or in North America? Let's start with Aya.
The thing is, in the musical conservatory, for example, in my conservatory I've been to, was like 50-50 in the composition department.
In Japan?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Wow.
Okay.
It just happened like that, or is it because of quota?
No, it's not it was happening coincidentally.
Okay.
And it was 50-50, and not only on my grade, but also like every grade, it was just 50-50, or sometimes females are more than male composers. That thing is, like after the education, a lot of female composers quit being a composer as well, because of the gender, like old-fashioned gender idea, or some of them are going to be like a cinema composers, or they're just quitting being a contemporary music composer. So that's why I don't really know what they are doing now. So that's why I see more male composers are doing something actively in the contemporary music scene. But
wait a second. So let me say, so you said that many women are quitting after studying. So until they study, they are encouraged to be composers. But after that, they're supposed to be like women staying home, or what? Why is it?
It's really depend on a person nowadays, because the things have been changed a lot. But some of them are getting married to be a composer, or some of them are just switching a career or something like that. So I don't really know what they are doing, but I don't really see many composers are still doing actively in the contemporary music scene after the education. That's the thing. Yeah, but at the same time, there has been a really interesting movement about like women contemporary music composers. Like what I'm gonna get you the exact name of the community, but there is a kind of a community to encourage the women, like female composers, female contemporary music composers, which is organized by the female composers who are living in Europe before. And she got a lot of inspiration about like a female composers encouraging movement in Europe, and she brought it back to Japan. So that kind of movement is still happening in Japan. So maybe things going to be changed a little bit afterwards. But for example, in Denmark, there is a really controversial like stuff going on nowadays about like how we could be fair between the female and also male.
Why is it controversial?
Because we tried to be fair for the last decades, but still a problem with the for example, with the orchestra or like an opera production, because they don't really pick up female composers pieces in a fixed program, anything like that, like compared to the male composers. But for like a small ensembles or those kind of like a small like a business scheme, they are more taking a female composers. So I don't know, it's a kind of a political reason behind, but that kind of thing is kind of a controversial now.
So it depends really much about if you're dealing with the institutions or more of the free small ensembles. That is actually really interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to get back to what you said about the situation in Japan. I've understood that indeed the gender roles have been really rigid and old-fashioned, in a sense that not only in terms of music, but in many actually fields of people are supposed to get a good education, but after that many expect that the women would still stay home after marriage. So but I understood from what you said that this is changing rapidly. So you could you tell a bit more of this? This is actually really interesting. Also in terms, because this dynamics has changed even inside of Europe, in every country a bit different, in a bit different pace and with different dynamics. So it would be interesting to hear more of the situation in Japan.
Yeah, in general, we have a kind of a saying that women have to be 3 steps behind the males. It's a kind of just a culture. And when I was young, I didn't really doubt about those kind of a gender culture at all, because I didn't know like how to be fair or those kind of things. And nobody taught me like a gender equality or anything like that. But nowadays, we got a lot of inspiration from America or Europe about like a gender equality or those kind of things. So even in the younger generation or even in a primary school, they're studying about those kind of things. So I think the things have been changing a lot for the last 2-3 years and also coming years. So it's a kind of a little bit like a confusion time in a way. Yeah, but I personally think those culture also should be respected as well, because it's a part of culture. So we don't have to integrate everything together, or we don't have to Americanize everything. But yeah, I'm wondering how to be together with those distinct 2 different things.
Also, small follow-up question. Would you say that you feel you have felt welcome as a female composer in Denmark or in the Netherlands?
Yeah. Nowadays, yes. Yeah. And some competitions said like it's encouraged for female composers to apply it more or something like that. So.
All right. How is it for Feliz? Same questions. Like, do you need me to ask the question again so that, or do you know what?
No, I think it's
Okay.
This is this is a really difficult question, and it's not the first time that I'm asked this kind of question. Let us focus this on just contemporary music, let's say.
Perhaps,
so, yeah. In the Philippines, or at least in Southeast Asia, I think the case is at that time when I was still a student, I'm always like just one of the big group of guys, my brothers, I would say. I think it wasn't because of inequality or not getting opportunities or so, but it's because we just didn't have women models. Like, for example, when you study music, you have your textbooks and so on. You don't see names of women composers. Or, of course, in other fields, it's singers and so on. There are many women, but for composition, there's not a lot. Also, the question of if I get less opportunities than guys, it's another. In the first place, we don't have so much opportunities in Southeast Asia. It's a thing. So
you mean you don't have much opportunities as a woman, or for anybody?
For anybody.
Yeah.
So we have to keep applying, and it's a complex and complicated case for us, right? When there's a competition, it's not just. I think it's a reality that the jury, the first things they would look at are the names of those they know, and for example, if you don't study with, if you didn't expose yourself in big festivals and you didn't study with some famous composers and they don't know anything about you, then you have less chances of getting opportunities. And in my case, what I did when I was starting is I felt I have more opportunity if I join anonymous competitions, like no name or but it's not because I'm a woman, but it was just a general.
It makes the playing field.
Now, yes, there are many women composers in Southeast Asia, and I'm really happy about that. And we connect and they ask questions, and it's the same thing that I did when I was younger. As soon as I meet one, I remember I spoke with like a Thai composer, a woman composer. The first things I ask are about life and how do you continue, how do you survive? Is it possible? And what was your other question?
About the other countries, like how do you compare being a woman composer, female composer in Philippines and the other countries? If there are some differences or not? If you felt welcome as a female composer?
I think I was welcomed, more than welcome, maybe, because it's very funny because I'm a woman, I'm Asian, and everybody wants diversity, but
so you check all the boxes.
Yes, we make jokes about this with my other friends and like, hey, you get this, but I think this applies in a certain environment. How do you say? You have to enter like a scene. It's difficult to explain, but how do I explain it? So when I come to Europe, when I came to Europe, of course I feel that I have to first show what to prove that okay, we're on the same level. I have the skills as well. I can also do this and so on. Then when we're on the same level, then I feel that opportunities are coming, and you get the same. You're seen equal seen as equal by your peers, colleagues.
Yeah, so did
don't
I
know
understand correctly that you were saying that first you have to prove that you are on you have the same skills as everybody else, but after that you are welcome and you are treated as everybody else?
Yes.
Okay, and was the experience same in Hanover or Graz compared to, let's say, Montreal or Memphis?
The situations were different, but I think it's because, at which stage am I in my career or in my study? In Memphis, I was just I just left the country, and I had to. There were a lot of changes. There was like a culture shock, and I have to adapt to that first before I can focus and compose, and also adapt to the environment in the university where there's a lot of courses and you have to talk a lot, and so for me there were many changes.
I would actually be interested to hear a bit more of the culture shock. Was it what kind of things caused you the culture shock? What was shocking in the Tennessee?
So my second language is English. I studied it. I learned it since I was a child, but I didn't speak it like conversational English. I didn't speak it with, for example, my family. So when I do it, it's just in the university, and if I have to give a presentation, and it's not like now that I can just talk freely. When I was in Memphis, I felt like I don't know the language at all. I don't understand anything. Whatever I hear, I'm like, what did you say? Or this was the first shock. And the next one is that people like to express, people like to give their opinion. You always have to say something. In seminars, everybody has to say something. Like you will not leave the room unless you say something. They will wait for you, and they're very patient. They want to hear your opinion. And I wasn't used to this. I'm used to just listening and following and doing what I'm asked to do. But to ask for what I think, it was quite new for me. Now I'm thinking about it, and it's quite funny. But this was the case. In Montreal, I think it was, I got well adapted a bit more.
All in all, you would say that as a female composer, you were treated pretty okay in European and North American environments.
Yes.
Okay.
So I would also be interested. We already talked about funding composition projects or the artistic work of a composer. But how about organizing events or projects, let's say with ensembles or with festivals? Do you have any experience in that, and how is that happening in the countries you have lived in?
I had an experience in Denmark before. Like for example, in 2017, I really wanted to my opera for the first time, but I didn't have any production, and I didn't have anything. So I did everything from scratch. I was looking for a project manager, or I was looking for funding, like both in Japan and Denmark. And at the time, it was the 150 years anniversary between the Japan and also Denmark for the a diplomatic friendship.
Okay, interesting.
I want to do something between, and also I was the only one Japanese composer who was living in Denmark at the time. So I thought, me is a kind of perfect person to do something, not only for me, but also people who are doing something between the cultures, like between the countries in the culture scene, especially. So I wanted to do opera, and I was looking for foundation and also sponsor company who are interested in the cultural event in Denmark. And also the other hand, Danish company who had a Japanese branch. So we tried to make a kind of a cultural bridge through my opera, like a project. So that were the biggest things I ever organized.
So was it easy to get funding to that project, or to make it happen, or was there difficulties?
I wouldn't say like funding was not really everything. A lot of people helped me like voluntary as well, like for free, because they were very much interested in the project itself. So it was not everything about the funding, but yeah, but of course funding helped us quite a lot to do it. Otherwise we couldn't do it. So
actually, what you were talking about, the diplomatic relationships, that brought to my mind a question about, because it's important in diplomacy, but I think it's also important in terms of music.
Yeah.
So whether people are kind of facing each other as equals, or does somebody feel that they are inferior, or do they feel that they're superior? What do you think, Aya? Is there these kinds of feelings between the Japanese musicians and the European musicians, or between composers from these countries?
I think we tried to be, but the situation has been so different between the countries. So I don't know how much equal they are, but we tried to be. But the most important thing is that we try to understand each other first. That could be the first step to be equal somehow. Yeah, because it's too different each other. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Feliz, do you want to comment about this?
So maybe with regards to your question about organizing,
Yes,
events.
perhaps.
Yes, so I've committed to one small organization of composers in the Philippines, and this is called Manila Composers Lab. And we've been existing since 10 years, 11 years, 2009, 10. So even if I'm not anymore in the country, I'm like part of the core, or most of the members actually are not in the country, but we're part of the core, and we try to do something every year. It's very difficult, but maybe my contribution is, like, for example, the fact that I'm here in Europe. When I meet like an interesting ensemble, then I try to tell them about the event in the Philippines, and if they're interested, then we can have them as a guest. But the thing here is that we're not like, for example, Singapore or Thailand, where they could get local fundings. For us, for Philippines, it's the opposite. We need external funding. The help that we can get from the country is more like the venue, or maybe some help for the accommodation of the guests. But to fly them, or to pay the artist, it has to come from the outside, and this has been very difficult. So, but we try to do it still, and the idea of, like, the vision of this organization is to keep it small. So it's always like just a small workshop, or a laboratory, but it's for young composers, and not just Philippines, but young composers in Southeast Asia. So we invite one student or one composer from Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia. We want to get someone from Laos, Myanmar, and it's really difficult. But yes, unfortunately, last year we couldn't do it, but hopefully we can continue.
Let's hope that it gets better again after the pandemic. What kind of ensembles would you invite from Europe to the workshop?
For
Yes,
practical,
three-quartered or a trio, or what kind of ensembles?
in the past, we managed, how many musicians did we manage? I think like 4 or 5, but usually like trio or duo. And then we get other musicians from the neighboring countries. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think when you are combining with the performing musicians from different countries? I could guess that there is lot of interesting interaction between them also in that case, because of the possibly different backgrounds in education or the repertoire they have played. So have you witnessed anything, that something new has come up because of that?
Mm-hmm. And it's very important that I think we value this kind of diverse backgrounds from the invited musicians, because in the lab that we're doing, it's not just about technique or teaching composition to the young composers, but also being sensitive to the cultural context. Yeah, so they have to be aware of different things.
I don't know if this is a bit naive way to approach this issue, but I would like to ask, because both of you have lived in many countries, so if you could, and many cities, if you could choose kind of the best bits of the culture of every of these places, what would it be and why?
Let's start with Aya.
Either in terms of
Yeah.
music or then in terms of, the life in general.
It used to be actually Copenhagen for a long time. Since I left the country, left Denmark, I was all the time thinking about, Copenhagen was the best place to do any type of steps. Also, as a person as well, like it's so, yeah, it was so comfortable to be there. But now I'm very much interested to be back to Tokyo as well. Yeah, I never think about it at all since I left the country 6-7 years ago. But yeah, because of the Olympic Games hopefully happening this year, or a lot of things going on, and the speed of the life, it's totally like faster than the one here in Europe, I feel. So I'm very much interested in that speed or / tempo at some point in my life again. So I don't know if I can fit it in, but yeah.
So you're missing the more intensive way of living in Japan.
Yeah, I would love to experience it again in my younger generation. I mean, before I'm getting too old.
If you ever want to experience very intense life, I can give you my videos of this podcast and you can edit them. That will give you some very intense experience. I can help you out. I mean.
No, thanks.
Well, only trying to help. I mean. Fellow
How about for you,
composers.
Feliz?
For me, actually, in my first 2 years in Graz, I was always thinking of Germany, and I thought, I think I want to come back to Germany because I have more friends there, more connections. I think in general there are more opportunities there. For a foreigner, it's important to decide quite soon where you want to live for practical reasons like visa.
Yes, definitely.
Every year, this is a problem. But I think as long as I live in Europe, as for example, since I'm doing my doctoral studies in Graz, and now on the third year, somehow I started to feel more connected to my environment and more friends, more people, more connections in Vienna as well. I'm thinking that, okay, maybe it would be Austria, but it's more like a base, home base. But in terms of connections or projects, it's always open, like in France or Germany, Italy. I cannot. It's difficult. I cannot really say because maybe this year there's an abundance of things to do, and then next year there's nothing.
But like, if you would take the best parts of each place where you lived, or what would those things be, musically or life? Like,
one reason why I was thinking of Austria, and when I'm comparing it to Germany, is because of the nature, because of the mountains, and because I can just go hiking anytime I want. And in Germany, it depends where you live, but But here I feel that I can do more like a normal living activities. In terms of the scene, I mean, there are many things happening as well in Austria, so it's quite nice. What I like about Germany is that in every city, they have their own scenes and professional ensembles and festivals. Every year you will hear something new, and they're quite well supported by big institutions, and it's really nice.
All right. I was actually thinking about this myself because we asked this question before from others, and if somebody would ask me, I would probably try to combine Finnish lifestyle and Finnish education and Finnish music scene with Romanian humor. And I don't know, like at least the Bucharest concert hall is so beautiful. So I if I could move that one here, I'd be pretty happy. Yeah. But
let's hope that they someday manage to invite that kind of machine with which you can transfer a huge
I think
building
no,
from
I think
different
it's.
countries.
I mean, I like the Romanian Athenaeum, which is the original concert hall in Bucharest. It's anyway quite small. It has like something like 500 seats, and it's very beautiful. But I think for Finnish standards, it's like very too romantic, too many colors. So I don't think it would work. But who knows? I like it because I'm cheesy, and I write cheesy music. So yeah. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Actually, we don't talk anymore because our time is kind of up. See, guys, this is why you do this podcast, because we learn a lot of things, and we get to try the Romanian humor on top of other people's backs.
Yeah. Thank you really much, Aya and Feliz. It has been a pleasure to talk with you two again after a couple of years. So it was really interesting to listen from your life experience.
You can check more about Feliz and Aya from the video description. And of course, now Niilo, you can try it once, right?
Okay, so share, subscribe, and click the bell button.
It's like, share, and subscribe. Come on, like.
Okay.
Do it
well,
again.
Okay. Like, share, subscribe.
And yes, it's good enough. We're happy.
Well, I was about to say and click the bell icon. So
you have to put all of this there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yes. My bad.
But I guess we are fine with it, right?
We're very fine with it. I mean, of course, everybody will want to subscribe anyway, so maybe we don't even need to say it because people are just so excited about what we're doing. All right, but thank you very much, Aya and Feliz, for taking part in our podcast, and we will see you again for the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.